Hello, this is Miss Evelyn with the Veterinary Technology Program and course VT1005. And this is the second week PowerPoint on animal science or animal care terminology for the Receptionist Basic Skills course. And our topic today is covering animal terms that are used for anatomy and breeding terms. And by no means is this a course in anatomy. This is just giving a basis for major terms that receptionists or people working in a pet store area, feed store area could utilize and understand a little bit of what's discussions from the clients, reading medical records, and also discussions with the veterinarians. But before we go into the anatomy and breeding terms directly, I want to cover, this is not a course in medical terminology, but even as we go through this week's material on this PowerPoint, you're going to see that there are actually medical terminology words in here. So when we did, so this is a 4-slide area about medical terminology. This is also covered then in the other course for the receptionist certificate, the VT1011 course in full, but just as a little introduction. So science and medicine is a really distinct language, and at times it can sound very strange and complex. But basically, when you can break the words apart, you will find the definition. And so on this page, with the curious little chipmunk being present, we have several terms: terminology, hematology, biology, zoology, and zoologist. So the ending of that word, like zoologist, actually can also change it from what type of word it is, from a noun or an adjective, okay? So that ending of the word can really affect that. But when we look at the word terminology, well, the first part, it's terms, talking about various words. And the ology, logy ending, L-O-G-Y, is meaning study of. So then we form the definition. We go to the end of the word and go back to the beginning to form the definition. So train yourself in medical terminology to always look at the end of the word and then move forward. So our definition for terminology is study of words. Hematology, well, hemat or hema is actually referring to blood. So this is the study of blood. And this is the basis of medical terminology. You just break them apart. Biology. So probably several of you may have taken a course in biology. Bio is meaning life. So this is the study of all living things, where if you say zoology, well, zoo refers to animals, so that's the study of animals. But if you change the end of the word, a zoologist, it is a person who studies animals. A biologist, hematologist, a person who studies that area. So breaking those terms apart. So in medical vocabulary word parts, there are, in medical terminology, there are actually 5 word parts involved. Again, if you just make quick little notes about this, this will help you in the future as you get into a full course in medical terminology. But we have what's called the root or the foundation of the word. And then quite often, oftentimes, there is having to be that ending of the word is the suffix. And then you may have a combining vowel that brings them together to make the English language work. And as I say in this rule, you want to read the word backwards. You start at the suffix, and that forms the beginning of the definition. So again, in hematology, you go to the end, the logi is study of, and then you come to the root, hemat, blood, study of blood. That's what I mean by reading it backwards. And this slide illustrates that with a picture of a red blood cell corpuscle off to the right-hand side. So your root and your suffix and a combining vowel. So hemat, and then you have an O for and make it work to hematology. Gastroenterology. Say that with me another time. Gastroenterology. With gastra, meaning the stomach, enter is the intestines, and logi again, study of. And another key in medical terminology is the fact that organs are placed in the word in the order that they are in the body. So you do not have enterogastrologist. That doesn't make sense. Enterogastrologist, it's almost hard to say because you wouldn't have that because the stomach comes before the intestines. And as you can see in the picture here, the yellow area is the stomach, and then you have the little squiggler parts are the small intestines that it empties into first, and then the large intestine area. So you would always have the stomach before the intestines. So it's gastroenterology. That can help you if you know one part of the term and you say, I know what entero means and logi, wonder what gastro, what has to be before that area of the intestines. Another way of putting words together and another suffix that you'll learn here right now is itis. Notice that a suffix is also denoted by having a hyphen written before it. So hyphen logy for study of, hyphen itis for inflammation. And gastritis is how you pronounce it. Inflammation of what? Inflammation of the stomach, gastritis. So there's two other word parts. So we had our root and a suffix and a combining vowel. And then we have what's called the prefix. Now, not all words will have a prefix, but it would stand before the root or the roots. And then you have a combining form that will help make your root match up with English language for spelling and pronunciation. So to illustrate a prefix here, I have it in blue. So epi is a prefix meaning above, and the suffix ic, means pertaining to. So you go to the end of the word to form your definition. So it is pertaining to above the stomach, epigastric, pertaining to above the stomach, epigastric. A combining form again for like blood, hemato, hemat, HEMAT /O. So medical words that you will see here in this PowerPoint is genotype, crypt orchid, proestrus, polyestrus, anestrus, oh, a big long one, ovariohysterectomy, feetotomy, and mastitis. I'm going to read those again. You can say them with me. Get your mouth to start saying the words. Genotype, crypt orchid, proestrus, polyestrus, anestrus, ovariohysterectomy, feetotomy, and mastitis. We'll explore what those words really mean. Now we start our little brief study in about 10 slides on anatomy. No, again, this is not an anatomy class. And I actually don't break down cells, but just to set a couple anatomical organization basics. We have cells, and as the bottom words here on this slide say, cells come together and form tissues. And then tissues can come together, combine with other tissues to form individual organs, such as your heart and your eyes and your brain. The little cells off to the right-hand side that are green and red and yellow area, that's an example of how a tissue, cells come together to form tissues. And then those tissues, various types of tissues, can come together to form organs, and various organs come together to form systems. And this is actually the basic format of any study in anatomy. So I did not bring in the basis of cells into actual brief PowerPoint on anatomy, but we're going to look at 4 tissue types. 2 of them are illustrated on this slide, 2 on the next one. So the 2 on this slide is connective tissue or epithelial tissue. You should know these. Again, these are in bold, black letters. Those are as a definition that you should understand for the course. So connective tissue and epithelial tissue. Connective. So connective actually even includes our bone, tendons, blood. Now, isn't that strange? Blood is a fluid, but it is considered a tissue because it connects between the parts of the body. So it connects something, so it is a tissue. These are sparsely arranged cells. As you can kind of see off to the, again, the yellow area with the green on the left-hand side here is sort of showing very sparsely arranged cells that would actually be connective tissue. Epithelial cells are more densely arranged. They protect the body surface, and that is what is the outer layer of our skin, and actually contains different types of epithelial tissue is what lines all of the gastrointestinal tract. It also covers their glands. So anything that needs protection, you do not want all of your substances that you eat to just get into the rest of your body without going through the stages necessary of digestion. So there's this epithelial tissue that protects the rest of the body from getting substances or bacteria or items like that that you would not want in other areas of your body. So connective, remember, it does include bone, our tendons, our blood, our fat, and epithelial. The other 2 types of tissue are muscle and nervous. So muscles, they tend to be very long, fiber-like cells. This is what helps produce the body movement. It also is in like the heart, the walls of the stomach, the limbs. It is what helps us move. That is muscle tissue. To pull loads. Nervous tissue is usually a variety of types, and this actually is communication of our body. This helps regulate body functions, helps regulate our internal body temperature, and so forth. It is the brain, the spinal cord, and the nerves. So again, the 4 tissue types to know are connective and epithelial, and muscle and nervous, with some illustrations on those. So in the beginning, it said that cells form tissue, and tissues come together with other tissues to form organs. So organs are tissues that are formed together. So on this one, we have at the bottom of the screen, the organ of the heart, also has some vessel attached to it. The eyeball, certainly various types of tissue come together to form that eye, and the brain. And off to the right side, we have various organs representing the liver on the top. The kidney shaped, or the bean shaped, is actually the stomach. Then we have our small intestines, the red loopy area, ropey looking, and then the large intestine. So those are all different organs. But when organs come together, they form systems. So systems are groups of organs that work together. And I have a few systems represented here. We have on the upper right-hand corner is our nervous system. By no means in this class are you learning all those parts. In a full anatomy class, you will pull all those apart. But that is the nervous system, the brain, the spinal cord, and all the nerves that connect to the various parts of the body for different body functions. Off to the bottom right-hand side, you have the gastrointestinal system with the liver, the gallbladder, the large intestine, the parietal peritoneum, the small intestine. We have a greater omentum and a spleen. So those are various organs that are included in our gastrointestinal system. You don't need to know all those different organs at this point in your learning. And then we have in the middle on the bottom is the respiratory system with the trachea and our lungs. So systems are organs that come together to form functions that they will do. This slide lists the various systems that generally, and a full course in anatomy physiology will take you through. We're going to be touching on parts of these, and I'm not going to take much time here because on the next slide are definitions that you should write out and understand for this class about the various systems. I'm going to read each of those systems names so you can repeat those after me. Integument, that is our skin, the hair, hoofs, and so forth. Integument. Of course, is the bones and cartilage. It forms the structure of our body. The muscular system, muscles, they produce the movement. Nervous system, I already mentioned that that's the brain, the spinal cord, all the nerves that pull it together for sensory perception. Senses, sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. And the endocrine system, various hormones, the body regulation. On the right-hand side, we have cardiovascular, so that is the heart and the veins and the arteries to cause the circulation of the blood, which remember is a tissue, but the cardiovascular system. Lymphatic, which works quite closely with cardiovascular and other organs. It contains the lymph nodes, helps get rid of body toxins. Respiratory, which also works along with the cardiovascular system to bring oxygen into the body and also to remove our carbon dioxide as a waste product. So the respiratory system. Digestive system, or it includes also the gastrointestinal system, but digestive, to take our feedstuffs, break them down into nutrients, and to rid solid wastes. Urinary system, to void our liquid waste, and reproductive, to cause the next generation. So do know these simple definitions. We're going to look at some of these areas, break this apart a little bit more in the next slides. So the skeletal anatomy, okay, and it's important for receptionists to understand this and also be able to spell the words properly when you're inputting information into a computer system, writing notes down to the doctor to communicate well. So the skeletal system is composed of various types of connective tissue. And we have two main areas. You can read the definitions here, but the axial skeleton, which comes down sort of the middle part of the animal or a human. So it's the central skeleton. You do need to know what is involved in both the axial skeleton and the next one listed on this page, the appendicular. So in the axial, you have your skull, your vertebral column, the ribs, and the sternum. In a bird, that sternum is called the keel. Again, spelling is very important. If you only have one vertebra, B-R-A, that is a singular vertebra. Vertebrae, B-R-A-E, is the plural form. Now there are 5 regions, and for this course I'm not having you know those, but just also understand that all mammals, you're introduced to the term mammal, of course, in the first PowerPoint, but all warm-blooded mammals have 7 cervical or neck area vertebrae. So again, spelling is important if you're doing a singular word or a plural word. The appendicular skeleton, this refers, if you think of something, appending something, you're adding it to the other part. So appendicular refers to the limbs and all the appendages. And the other parts that are involved in our skeletal system to give the form and some of the connection area. So bone is the hardest connective tissue. It helps provide the structure and form. And cartilage is a connective tissue that's more flexible than bone, but also helps keep the parts together. And I have a picture of a bone on this slide. So again, understand the terms in bold and the definitions that go with them. We're now going to kind of break this apart just a little bit more. So in our skeletal anatomy terms, we have the term joint. You're probably familiar with that already. That's where bones come together. And there are various types of joints that in a full anatomy course you'll be introduced to. We also have the symphysis. This is a joint of a type. Symphysis is a type of joint. It has very limited movement. We see these in parts of the brain, the skull area, I should say, the cranium, where there are various bones that come together, but there is very little movement. There is a symphysis of a joining. S-Y-M-P-H-Y-S-I-S, symphysis. Another area where we see this is the pelvis, and also the mandible. Our lower jaw is actually two bones coming together, and it is joined at the joint that is a symphysis. The other two parts that help make up our tissues that come in to help make up the bony structure and movement possibilities of our body is the ligament and tendons. So ligaments are connective tissue. You need to know this one for a quiz, that attach bone to bone. So ligaments attach bone to bone. I have a picture of a knee here. So various ligaments help keep our patella, our kneecap in place, along with the femur and the fibula and tibia. They keep them in line by ligaments, bone to bone. Tendons, and I always think of the Achilles tendon on the back of my ankle area. It is tendons connect muscle to bone. So understand those definitions. Ligament attaches bone to bone, tendons muscle to bone. A little closer look to the appendicular skeleton. So this is in our limbs and appendages. We call four-legged animals quadrupeds, and quite often we'll call the front area of the animal forequarter and the hindquarter. We don't really say the arms of the animal. We do say legs, but you might say the forearms or the forequarter and the hindquarter. The appendicular area includes the scapula. That meets where the thoracic vertebrae meet together can form the withers on our animal. Down our front leg we have, or the forearms, we have the humerus, the ulna, the radius, the carpus, metacarpus, and phalanges. The pelvis is on the hind area. There are 3 bones there. The largest bone is called the ilium, and the spelling is critical because in another slide you're going to see a very similar word, and it is spelled that the hip and pelvis area is I-L-I-U-M. And we'll see that it's different when it refers to the small intestine. So spelling is critical, or you may misspell that in a medical record and somebody will start prepping an animal for surgery in the wrong area. The hind leg bones include the femur, patella, tibia, fibula, tarsus, and metatarsus. Then there are small bones that can be around the front and hind legs. It's called the sesamoid bones, like a sesame seed, very round and kind of flat. And one of the main sesamoid bones you will need to know this one, is the navicular bone found in horses. It's down near the hoof area on the back, the caudal aspect of the leg, and it's called the navicular bone, and they have a lot of problems with that. One of my tips for remembering the difference between where the carpus is in the front quarters, forequarters of our animals, front leg areas, versus the tarsus in our hind leg animals. If you think of yourself as a person, your wrist area is the carpus. And with your hands and your wrist, you drive your car, C-A-R. So the carpus is on the front legs of our patients, of our animals, or the front arms, our wrist area, carpus. Tarsus, you walk as a human on the tar, T-A-R, and that's the tarsus on the hind legs of our animals. If that helps you, you can remember it that way. Let's start looking at muscles. So we talked about muscle fiber, connective tissue of muscle fiber, and these expand and contract. You have voluntary movements and involuntary. So voluntary is saying to your hand, I'm going to pick up my coffee cup, and your hand moves. Now we think of that very quickly through our nervous system, but it is a voluntary movement versus our breathing or our cardiac function. I don't have to hear and say, heart muscle, please beat. Heart muscle, please beat, 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 beat. No, no, no. Don't forget to beat. It is involuntary, and the functions for life are involuntary. So remember those two differences. You have a cardiac muscle, striated involuntary muscle, and so it's involuntary. Skeletal muscle tends to be, may also have some involuntary, but is typically voluntary. This helps you ambulate. It is ambulatory, how to move. And then the smooth muscle inside helps move our food through the digestive tract. This week we will be exploring the digestive system, but digestive systems have similarities, but then vast differences. And we will explore those next week, but you can look at these pictures that actually, if you think of the horse and the rabbit, they are much more similar than a horse in a sense to a dog or a cat. And then reptiles are even different. And notice the difference of how the depiction here between a cow and a bird. So we will be looking at those a little deeper next week. So there are similarities and differences in our digestive tract. Gastrointestinal tract includes the mouth, the tongue, the teeth, the esophagus, the stomach, the small intestine, the colon, the rectum, the liver, and the pancreas. Now notice here is that other word. This is a I-L-E-U-M. It is a capital I in this case, but I-L-E-U-M is this part that's pronounced ileum, same pronunciation as we had on the slide just before, which was ileum. But the ileum with an E belongs in the small intestine, in the abdominal area, and the ileum with an I is in the pelvic bone area. And then we have a ruminant. That is a ruminant by definition is a stomach with multiple compartments. Generally, it is 4 compartments, but there are modified ruminants. And ruminants, the stomach is very large. We have a picture here of a rumen with a person's hand and the ruler up there, how large that rumen is in our animals that have a rumen, like a cow, a sheep, a goat. And this lets them take in a lot of feed, and then they regurgitate it, they ruminate it back up out of the rumen, and they swallow it, they chew it and swallow it again, and bring it back down into their stomach into the following stomach areas for further digestion. Mammals need oxygen, they need circulation for the heart, they need energy for digestion, hydration for water, and they need to be able to reproduce. So this is just a slight showing of some anatomical areas. We will continue with the external anatomy on a second part of this presentation. So at this point, I'm going to actually cease the recording and we'll make it 2 parts.